The ocean has always been a place of both fascination and fear. Beneath its shifting surface, beyond the reach of sunlight, there exists a realm that has shaped life on Earth in ways we are only beginning to understand. Today, sharks are the symbols of that mystery and danger. When most people hear the word shark, they think of the great white, a predator with rows of teeth capable of tearing into flesh, or perhaps the hammerhead, with its oddly shaped head cutting through schools of fish. But the truth is that these modern sharks are only modest descendants of titans that once prowled the seas. Millions of years ago there lived sharks so immense, so overwhelming in size and power that their jaws could have swallowed a modern boat whole. They were not creatures of fantasy or legend. They were real animals, predators honed by evolution, to rule seas far richer and far more dangerous than the ones we know today. To imagine these sharks, one must first let go of everything familiar about the modern ocean. These were not simply larger versions of great whites. They were unique species, many of them unlike anything alive today, with forms so strange they challenge our imagination. Some had teeth arranged in spirals like the blades of a buzzsaw. Others carried jaws filled with serrated knives sharper than any tool humans could forge. They were giants not only in size but also in design, showing the extraordinary creativity of evolution. To stand in their presence, if such a thing were possible, would have been to face not just a predator, but a living reminder that nature has no limits except survival. Their fossils are few, but terrifying. Teeth bigger than a man's hand, jaws that stretch wider than the doors of a room, and skeletal remains hinting at bodies longer than buses. To speak of them is to speak of monsters that once defined power in the sea. To understand how they came to dominate, we must picture the world they lived in. Millions of years ago, during much of the Mesozoic and early Cenozoic eras, Earth's climate was warmer, sea levels higher, and the oceans themselves different from what we see today. Much of the planet's land was covered by shallow seas that flooded continental interiors. Coral reefs flourished in abundance, creating underwater jungles teeming with life. Fish grew to sizes rarely seen now, while marine reptiles like plesiosaurs and mosasaurs carved through the waters like living submarines. Even the earliest whales, still finding their place in the evolutionary story, swam cautiously in seas that belonged not to them, but to sharks. In this environment, predators had everything they needed to push the boundaries of size: food in abundance, warmth that allowed growth, and ecosystems stable enough to support creatures of astonishing scale. In these seas swam Cretoxyrhina, a predator that paleontologists call the Ginsu shark. At nearly 7 meters long, this shark dominated the oceans of the late Cretaceous. Its jaws were armed with rows of serrated teeth that could shear through flesh with terrifying precision. To imagine its power, think of a shark as long as a city bus, accelerating through the water toward an unsuspecting marine reptile. The moment of impact would have been brutal, a blur of muscle and teeth leaving behind only blood in the water. Fossil evidence tells us that it fed on everything from giant fish to mosasaurs, making it a top predator in ecosystems already filled with deadly competitors. Cretoxyrhina's dominance was proof that sharks had perfected the art of predation long before the world we know today. Yet Cretoxyrhina was only the beginning. From the fossil record emerges Helicoprion, a shark so bizarre that its discovery baffled scientists for decades. Unlike any predator before or since, Helicoprion carried a spiral of teeth in its lower jaw, a structure often described as resembling a circular saw. At first, paleontologists had no idea how to place such a fossil. Some thought it might have been a defensive weapon on the tail. Others imagined it mounted along the back. Only later did we understand that this spiral was part of its jaw, and that when Helicoprion closed its mouth, the spiral rotated inward, pulling prey deeper into its bite. Imagine a predator with a saw built into its face, slicing through schools of fish in a motion both horrifying and efficient. It was not the largest shark, reaching perhaps 12 meters at most, but its design was a masterpiece of evolutionary experimentation. The ocean rewards those who find new ways to eat, and Helicoprion was a specialist without rival. Then came the Otodus lineage, a group of sharks that would eventually give rise to the most famous giant of all, Megalodon. But even before Megalodon, these sharks were immense. Some species grew over 10 meters long, with teeth so large they could be mistaken for stone tools. These were the precursors to the ultimate giant, testing the boundaries of size in preparation for the predator that would one day dwarf them all. When Otodus hunted, it likely targeted large fish and the earliest whales. With a bite that could snap bones, it was both a precursor and a rival to everything else in its seas. The rise of Otodus marked a shift in shark evolution, a trend toward gigantism that showed just how much room there was for sharks to expand when the oceans were rich with prey. Why did these sharks grow so large? The answer lies in the rules of evolution which respond to opportunity. Abundant prey is the fuel of giants. In prehistoric seas, schools of fish stretched for kilometers, marine reptiles grew to monstrous sizes, and early whales offered the richest meals any predator could ask for. To hunt these animals, size itself became an advantage. A larger body meant faster bursts of speed, stronger bites, and the ability to overpower prey too massive for smaller hunters. Warmer oceans also played a role. With global temperatures higher than today, metabolic demands could be met more easily, allowing sharks to maintain enormous sizes without exhausting themselves. High oxygen levels in the oceans further supported this growth, giving them the stamina needed for long chases. But gigantism is not without costs. The larger a predator grows, the more food it requires to survive. A giant shark needed constant hunting success. If prey disappeared, the giant would soon follow. Evolution rewards size when the environment is stable, but when the world changes, size becomes a burden. Modern sharks like the great white or tiger shark are smaller, more adaptable, able to survive on varied diets. The giants of the past lived at the edge of what was possible. They thrived while the seas provided, but when the seas shifted, they had nowhere to turn. And shift they did. Over millions of years, the Earth cooled. Ice formed at the poles. Sea levels fell, shrinking the shallow seas that had once been nurseries for fish and coral. Many of the large prey species that giant sharks relied upon either evolved into new forms or vanished entirely. Whales, once vulnerable, began to grow larger and more efficient, taking over ecological niches that had once belonged to sharks. Smaller shark species proved better survivors, their flexibility ensuring they lived on while their massive cousins dwindled. The giants that had once defined power in the oceans were reduced to fossils, their teeth scattered in rocks, as the only testament to their reign. The decline of these predators shows how quickly dominance can vanish. What was once a world of giants became a world of survivors. To look back on these creatures today is to feel both awe and relief. Awe because they show us the possibilities of life when conditions are perfect for growth. Relief because if such creatures still swam the oceans, humanity would think twice before venturing to sea. Imagine standing on the deck of a fishing boat, only to see a shadow longer than the vessel itself sliding beneath the waves. Imagine jaws opening wide enough to engulf boat and crew in a single bite. The fact that these giants no longer exist spares us from such nightmares, yet their fossils remind us that nature has created monsters before and might again. Evolution is a story without end. If the oceans were once capable of producing sharks that could swallow boats, what other shapes might emerge in the future? Even now, the sea remains the least explored realm on our planet. Its depths are still filled with mysteries, with species yet to be discovered, with ecosystems hidden beyond our reach. When we study the fossils of giant sharks, we are not just looking into the past. We are also peering into possibility. The story of these predators tells us that the ocean can and has produced monsters beyond imagination. Perhaps somewhere, in the deep trenches or unexplored waters, descendants of forgotten lineages still swim. We may never know for certain. But as history has shown, the ocean always keeps secrets, and some of those secrets may be larger, stranger, and more powerful than we dare to dream.